Who doesn't like chocolate? Honestly, I'm like that guilty child, face covered in chocolate, wrappers and pieces of chocolate all over the table floor, trying to convince my parents that it wasn't me. Good times. Well, this summer I was up in the greater Sudbury area, a 4-hour drive north of Toronto, attending a travel conference called Travel Media Association of Canada, or TMAC. TMAC had arranged a few tours in and around the area to explore what the region has to offer. Sudbury is a mining town, responsible for most of the world's nickel, so naturally it's a science and mineral town. However, it's also an artsy town with a big city, small town feel, and being so far north, it's surrounded by absolutely stunning nature. I took the downtown walking tour, which brought us to several great spots, including Raven Rising Global Indigenous Chocolates. Like 20 of us piled into this little shop, gathered around the owner, Chef Tammy's prep table. We listened attentively as she explained how she incorporates her Indigenous heritage into making her chocolates, from ingredients and design to sourcing and supporting the Indigenous and local community. Like most tours, our time was limited, and we filed out just as fast as we filed in. But I found her story and her journey fascinating, and swore that if I ever return to Sudbury, I'm coming back to hang out with Chef Tammy again. Hey, welcome to another episode of Highway Highlights, a podcast that takes all the raw, unedited interviews and inspirational stories found all across the Rudderless Media YouTube channel. My name is Christopher Rudder, a road trip, day trip, and all-around travel expert in this travel space. In this episode, we will learn about Chef Tammy's schooling, sourcing chocolate, and the meaning behind Raven Rising. Discover how her journey as a child of the 60s scoop is incorporated into the production of her chocolate and sourcing Indigenous ingredients. We'll also learn what Chef Tammy hopes we and her customers get from her incredible chocolate products.
For many years, I was in and out of the electrical trade, and great money, just was not passionate about it. So I always like to say it was my midlife crisis. And I decided, instead of getting a younger boyfriend and buying a Corvette, that I would go back to school.
That, my friends, is a very awesome Chef Tammy Maki.
Baking and pastry arts. I loved baking all of my life. And they had it at Cambrian, and I signed up for it. And the minute I walked into that, the kitchen and the classroom, I knew that was what I was meant to do. It just felt right to me. And I was lucky enough, I finished the course, and within a couple of weeks I had a job offer out in Banff, Alberta, and I never looked back.
Chef Tammy Maki is a certified Red Seal journeyman, pastry chef, and baker. With a passion for food, she pushed herself to learn everything she could in different restaurants and bakeries. She has worked all across Canada at some of the best resorts and hotels in the country, with some incredible people and under some excellent chefs.
But I didn't like working for other people. I'm a little bit, I want to do my own thing. And the only place you can do that really is own your own business, right? And I took everything that I learned from every aspect of life, and decided, of course, mid-pandemic, that I was going to open up e-commerce. And what am I going to ship e-commerce that's going to ship, right? Well, chocolate, right? Chocolate in and of itself is one of the oldest Indigenous ingredients that people worldwide know about, right?
Interesting.
So it originates from South America, South America. But South America now cannot keep up with the demand for cocoa and for the beans. Mm-hmm. So Africa is one of the largest producers of cocoa beans. Mm-hmm. And it's like great wine, right? It starts in one area and then, different places with the same kind of growing weather and soils
Sort of
and
like
everything.
grapes.
Exactly. So I love that it has expanded to all kinds of places. Of course, there's still Ecuadorian beans and Brazilian beans, and there's all kinds of them out there. But it's nice that I don't have to, arm wrestle somebody to get some beans, and I'm able to get, source chocolate quite easily. Raven Rising, the name. Raven is my spirit animal. And I love ravens, always have. They are just phenomenally smart creatures. And they also like to give gifts. And I find that that's who I am. I like to share things with people, and I'm always trying to stuff food in people. So I thought, well, I'm not giving people stones and pretty things, but I'm giving them gifts. And then my friend, who owns a couple of restaurants in Calgary, said to me, she said, you should call it Phoenix Rising. She said, because you're always you're emerging from the ashes and being reborn. And I said, Phoenix doesn't hold a place in Indigenous culture. I said, but ravens do. I said, and Raven Rising is just, it sounds mellifluous, right? It just kind of rolls off the tongue. So I said, Raven Rising it is. And it was born. Also during this time, so parallel universes, I was finding out about being a 60s scoop.
Now, in the 1960s, social workers in the child welfare system were unfamiliar with the culture and history of the Aboriginal communities they entered. They based their care on middle-class Euro-Canadian values that they believed were proper. Social workers often assumed that Aboriginal parents were not providing for their children when they saw dried game, fish, and berries in their homes, which are a part of the traditional Aboriginal diet. This assumption, combined with poverty, unemployment, and addiction in the reserve communities, led some local social workers to take children away from their parents without warning or consent. However, many Aboriginal parents were providing caring homes for their children despite their poverty. An alarmingly disappropriate number of Aboriginal children were apprehended from the 1960s onward. The homes in which children were placed ranged from caring, well-intentioned individuals to places of slave labor and physical, emotional, and sexual abuse, which was usually covered up. Chef Tammy is from the White Bear First Nation in Saskatchewan. She was separated from her birth mother during the 60s scoop and adopted by a Finnish-Canadian family here in Sudbury. She jokingly refers to herself as Indigenous. Now, this legacy of removing children from their families and communities through residential schools and children protection systems still impacts the lives of these mothers, their children, and their grandchildren till this very day.
And I was discovering about my Indigenous family and all kinds of things. And so I really wanted to incorporate that journey into my business. So I didn't want it to just be my journey. I wanted to share my journey with my customers and have them experience what I'm experiencing. As I'm learning, I want to teach them and have them learn. So, I'm like, I guess the Pied Piper of the Indigenous chocolate world. And I've got, all these people by the hand and we're going, la, 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 and, let's eat some chocolate and learn about some things, right? So, yeah, the business is Indigenous. It's Indigenous. The identity is definitely Indigenous because I'm Indigenous. So I think one of the most passionate things that I do are my bonbons. Unfortunately, they're sold out all the time. I make
That's
them,
a good problem to have.
It is, but it's like a conundrum, right? And I'm always trying to guess how many to make. So I make them for the chocolate membership people first. So hint, hint, if you want to ensure you get them, get a chocolate membership. And then I do make extra for e-commerce and for retail. But with those bonbons, that's where I really do the majority of my Indigenous ingredient or Indigenous business sourcing. So I'll take something like cedar and that taste that is cedar, and I'll pair it with a chocolate, right? So how people pair wine with food, that's what I do with chocolate and the ingredients.
Brilliant.
So everything needs to have a specific taste. In my mind, I know how it wants to be and what it's going to become. So I need to find that chocolate that's going to bring out that component of the cedar, right? So different chocolates are going to make that one ingredient taste different. So, I get to play a little bit. There's science involved in it, which I love science. I'm a little bit of a science nerd. But I also want to ensure that when I'm making these chocolates, that the outside is representative of what's on the inside. So I'm not going to make a cedar chocolate purple on the outside, right? So I did one and it looks like a cedar to me anyways. So it's my art, right? The rest of the bars and everything are not quite as Indigenous forward as far as ingredients go. Like they are chocolate, yes, and I do have some that have, seeds and berries and different fruits and whatnot. But to me, Indigenous is also about the appreciation and the love of all things nature. So for me, painting, birds and flowers and, even, Mr. Googly-eyed Halloween dude, but it's all about the love of everything that's around you and the appreciation for, art in general. Indigenous people have a very long history of different art in like so many different forms, right? So this is my interpretation of Indigenous art, and it may not be a traditional and accepted way with many people, but it's okay. It doesn't have to be. I don't have to conform.
It's your business.
That's right. My business, and it's my mind, and it's so warm and squishy and wonderful in there. There's so much happening in there all the time. And I'm lucky that my art gets to be eaten, so I get to recreate it in different ways all the time, right?
Now, in terms of Indigenous, when you are sourcing things, how does that work? Because you were mentioning that you support Indigenous by sourcing, as well as it's not just the art and it's not just the ingredients, it's also the sourcing.
So there's a lot of Google searches. There's a lot of emails. It takes a lot of time to ensure that, if I'm buying something from a business that says that they're Indigenous or they support Aboriginal business, that they actually are. So I don't take things at face value. I actually delve into it.
You have to dig,
I'm lucky that I have made some friends throughout my career that are in New Zealand and Australia, Japan, China, the Philippines. And I'm not afraid to ask the questions like, is this real? Is this, is it Indigenous? And I'm lucky that my friends are as black and white in some ways as I am. And
Perfect.
Yes, it is. And, no, they're not really. They say they are, but because there are a lot of pretendians out there right now. So yeah,
I just got
those
that.
are the people that I want to spank, and not in a good way. But it's important to me to definitely support, to buy things from a First Nation in Canada is a difficult task. It takes, oh my God, it does. There's no written supply chain for things like that yet. So we're still so behind the times for it. But again, it's buyer beware, do your homework and find out, right? So that's true worldwide. And if I'm not sure, then I'm not going to say that it's an Indigenous company or it supports Indigenous people, right? I'll just say I bought from this place. And it doesn't make it any less of a product. It's just not what I'm kind of focusing on. I do also want to say that I very proudly support local businesses and farmers, and also very happily buy Canadian product. I'm still Canadian. No matter what is going on politically in the world, I am a member of Canada as well as an Indigenous person. So
her edible art is nothing short of meticulously creative. Chef Tammy can spend 8 hours a day and only hand paint just a couple of hundred bars. And that's not including putting them together and all the other chocolate making processes. Before this episode ends, I wanted to ask Chef Tammy what she hopes people take away from Raven Rising besides delicious, stunningly artistic chocolate.
It's work, but it's interesting and it's surprising sometimes. And I get so excited when I order something and, then I get it in and I've kind of made plans in my brain for what I'm going to put into the boxes. And then I open this box that I got from New Zealand or something. And I'm just like, oh my God, I have to get this into the chocolate. And then out goes, the plans that I've made. And so it's just like everything to me is exciting. And I never, ever want to lose that, right? So every bar that I make, well, maybe not the fruit and whatnot, because those are kind of same, but that's okay, right? But I do like the painted, not everything the same. Everything a little bit different, little tweaks here, and always looking for ways to make things better, right? Easier for the customer, more attractive to the customer, better tasting all the time, right? I want to give them the best experience possible across from the minute you get onto the website until you get your product and it's in your belly.
Perfect. Yeah, I love that. That's it for this episode. Now, if you're ever in Sudbury, please visit Chef Tammy of Raisin Rising Global Indigenous Chocolates. Tell her I said hi, buy some chocolate, or subscribe to one of her chocolate memberships. There's links to all of this and things to do in Sudbury in the description. Be sure to check it all out. Until the next episode, miigwech.